go to this flag here. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. The school board will convene to close session tonight as per Wisconsin statute 19.85 per N1 per NC, Wisconsin statute section 120.13 per N1, Wisconsin statute 19.85 per N1 per NF, and 118.125 per N5. Did we have any guests that wanted to speak tonight? No one? Okay. Then we have three members of the Facility Study Committee here to do a presentation for us tonight. Linda Waite, Erin LeClaire, and Jeannie Bogle. So we will turn it over to you.
My name is Jeannie Bogle. I've lived here in Door County all my life. I've been a resident of the town of Sevastopol since 1986. My children did not go to school here because of the thing that goes on with Bayshore Drive where I lived. My children attended Sturgeon Bay, which meant that I never got through this school other than visiting the gymnasium. So when I received the card to be invited to become a CFAC member, I said, you know, I think I would like to serve on that committee. I think that education is important and children, as the cliche goes, is our future. So the first evening I remember walking through the facility with Kyle, and I chuckled because I had no idea, and we're walking through and I just couldn't believe the condition of this school. And the amazing part was to think that our academics here are so strong, that our students do so well based on the fact that the condition of this school is frankly appalling. So that's why I became involved. I'm glad I did. It's been a real education for me. I've got to meet some wonderful people. As a matter of fact, we had 30 members on this committee. We met for 11 months. 15 plus meetings. We probably each spent 30 plus hours of time serving on this committee. I really feel very strongly that we need to support this referendum. And my fellow CFAC members are going to go through more details with you. But I appreciate being heard, and I appreciate the time that the Board of Education spends to make sure that the children in Sevastopol have a great education.
All right. Good evening. Erin LeClaire, resident of the town of Jacksonport. I guess I was asked to be on the committee. I didn't quite notice the flyer that came in the mail, which kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. One, the reason I decided to be part of it is it gave me an opportunity to kind of give back, be part of the district, and not in the capacity that you folks are and the sacrifices you make for the community, for the kids, for these schools, which is obviously normally underappreciated. You all know that, but it is appreciated, the efforts you make that go into the success of this school. And referencing the academic success that we have here, this is an opportunity for us to kind of bring the facilities up to par with that and start taking the next step forward. I'm going to talk to you about Section 2 a little bit. And as Jeannie referenced, we went, over 30 hours were put in by various community members, and the committee is made up of a very good cross-section of the community, which was great. And what we had to do is we worked with the consultants that the district had in preparing options. We were at 9 options at one point, and we whittled those down to 2, and those were based off of not dreams, hopes and dreams of what could be the greatest school ever built in the country, right? Everybody want that, but they were they were based off realities, and realities that we got from maintenance personnel, from your school staff, and just from the sports aspects, arts aspects, all aspects. It wasn't anything in particular. And everything was looked at very objectively to make sure we weren't, this committee was made up of a lot of taxpayers, some not, all taxpayers, but some voting, some not. And to make sure we're spending their money wisely, because it's our money. So this committee took that to heart to make sure we were doing the right thing and to make sure we weren't over asking. We whittled it down to the two options that we prepared for survey. A lot of effort went into preparing that survey based off past history of people not knowing about surveys, things like that. All the different things we heard, we wanted to take into consideration to make sure we got the best feedback we could. So Linda will talk to you about the survey. I'll try not to step on that too much here, but we whittled it down to the two options. And you can see those here. Option one, the brand new school district of 57 million. Option two was the kind of tear down remodel of 45 million. And then you can see the informational packet that went out to folks that was part of the pre-survey information to try to make people aware. There was Facebook campaigns, anything we could think of to make sure our residents, taxpayers knew what was coming so they could have their input as well. And that led to what Lynn will talk to you about. Were you going to come back to all three of us when we talk about our recommendations?
Yeah.
So, Linda.
All right, thank you. My name is Linda Waite. I grew up just down the street here on a family farm, and I graduated from Sevastopol in 1969. I did leave. I came back, and I've been a permanent resident here in the town of Sevastopol since 1999. For the past 160 years, Sevastopol has had the benefit of this strong community spirit at the town level, the school level, our local hamlets of Institute and Valmy, our dairy breakfast, our threshery, our turkey trot, all these events that happen in the Sevastopol community. And I look at the success of fundraisers when it comes to needy families or raising funds for scholarship. We just all chip in, and we are a true community when it comes to a worthy cause. So nearly all of these things have a connection to Sevastopol School. Schools teach civic responsibility, and they help us produce responsible citizens. I look at the Sevastopol Schools' ratings and achievements, both state and at national levels. They're nearly impeccable. So I was asked, so because of my involvement with this community that I love and have a passion for, I volunteered for the CFAC committee to explore the options on renovation and or new construction. We were not given the charge to look at consolidation or dissolving. That was just because when it comes to, I'm gonna find my notes here, I'm sorry. I know a substantial number of taxpayers have asked why that was not explored. I believe it was explored by both the school board and our superintendent. And consolidation to split to the neighboring schools would still, if it was a consolidation and we split, I believe we'd still have to maintain some infrastructure, and I believe we'd still have to have some staff. Dissolution, being most likely absorbed by our school district to the south, would have required that district to, to accept 500 to 600 students. Obviously, they would have to substantially invest in their infrastructure and staff, and that obviously would affect the tax levy mill rate, which is already twice of that of Sevastopol. So our consultants did ask me to speak briefly about the survey that went out. The survey went out earlier this summer, approximately 2,700, I believe, and we had a response of 915. That's a 30% response, which is almost double of the normal, 15 to 20%, that is the average. And of that, on that survey, 60% of the responses indicated to do something with this school. And they would support a referendum, unfortunately, not to the tune of 45 million and not to the tune of 57 million, but they did favor doing something, and the percentage to favor a new build was higher than the percentage to do a renovation. And 70% supported the operational referendum of 2 million. So I'm not gonna go through all the details of the survey. Like I said, the responses, excellent response percentage. The survey explained the mill rates and all of that. The results are available on on the school website, I believe, or talk to any of the school board members. They'll be happy to have you, to help you with that. So basically, I support the this recent addition / renovation at an estimated cost of 25 million. I believe it is in the best interests of our students, our community. It's a long-term investment, and I hope to see this school here for a long time to come. Thank you.
So Megan and I are gonna jump in. I'm Clint Selly from Bray Architects. I'm just gonna quickly go through the tab, kind of the first part of tab 4. However, before we jump to tab 4, I do wanna just kind of flip back to tab 1 and kind of just talk about the committee charge, just kind of, because I think reevaluating that and understanding how we took the results of the survey and weaved that into this final solution. I think some of the points in this I think are very vital to kind of reevaluate looking at that. So again, the first bullet point is about needs, right? Infrastructure, building systems, educational needs. Really evaluating it, and we spent a lot of time looking at that. We looked at some pretty pictures of other schools, but we talked in depth about LED lighting and a number of different things as we went through the process. Proposing options, again, very evident. We looked at a number of different scenarios to consider for this. Purposeful spaces, so innovative learning, accommodating technology, and allowing parents and staff and students to collaborate in a modern learning environment was also very important as we considered it. And I think number 4 probably hits it on the head as far as what we received back from the community in the survey responses. It'd be great to have a brand new building, it'd be great to have a massive addition here, but in terms of what your community will support, they asked us to really reevaluate. So that's really kind of, I think, the most significant thing here in terms of how to evaluate that survey and where that led us to. And then obviously, this group has done a great job, as they indicated, talking to their neighbors, understanding, their web of friends and people that they work with, and communicating this out to the public, especially during that effort of the survey where the school board and Kyle went to knocking on every door that would allow the district in to really start to communicate that. So again, as we evaluated the results from the survey, I think we really came back to the essence of what do we truly need, what do we truly see as the part of this building that really needs to be addressed. And the committee, I think, did a great job distilling that down to looking at a solution where we replace that 3-story elementary building and looking at a solution where we update our tech ed, ag, and arts area to support the type of learning that those kids deserve. So really our plan kind of focused on those areas. And I think overall, when you consider the plan, the great thing about it is really kind of everybody got something, with this. This isn't an elementary solution, this isn't a middle school solution, this isn't the high school solution. I think everyone's really going to benefit from this overall. So the first plan you see at kind of a very macro level is our site plan for this. If you flip to the next page, it's a little bit more magnified, and you can see Again, the key moves in terms of the site is we will demolish the 3-story elementary building. We will demolish the tech ed building. In its place will become a parking lot and drop-off loop scenario for students and parents throughout the day. The 1990-91 gymnasium will remain, locker rooms will remain, music area will remain, as well as the bulk of the current high school, middle school will remain in this case. So you can see some of the pink areas, highlighted in the existing 60s building that's renovating some of the science classrooms, which again on our tours were kind of one of those areas where we really thought we could do better for our students. We also have to make some modifications to the elevator, which currently serves a floor level that will no longer exist. And then again, our addition here, the yellow, is connecting those two buildings. We'll work to reconnect those two buildings. Another focus we looked at is, the constructability. How can this be built while we maintain your current school? So this location and kind of the orientation of this building will serve us well during the construction phase of the project, where the students can remain in their current classrooms in various areas. We can build this and then move the students out, demolish the building, and do some of the other renovation work. So I think from that end, it works very well as well. Kind of from an overall perspective, again, your high school, middle school entrance will continue to function as it is. You currently have a secure entry vestibule sequence there. The elementary will have a new entrance kind of in this location, in this kind of courtyard area off of, again, this drop-off loop and parking. There's a early childhood 4K wing of the building and kindergarten wing of the building, 1st and 2nd grade along this corridor. And then this corridor extending up is kind of where some of the high school functions will be located. Again, as I mentioned, specifically tech ed, ag, some STEAM, STEM, Fab Lab spaces, and then elementary library and art. On the 2nd floor, we have, kind of turn the page, we have 3rd through 6th grade located up on the 2nd floor, as well as associated special ed and computer lab spaces for those. I think the key thing with this plan, and I think with any plan, is how do we accommodate future growth or shifts in education. And so part of the idea is that we design the structure for some of the 1st floor buildings that they can accommodate a future 2nd floor. So you can kind of see that notated in the plan. When we met back with the CFAC committee after the survey results and kind of looked and considered at some options, a couple things they wrestled with was whether we build new science classrooms as part of this addition or we renovate in place. So in this instance, the group decided to renovate in place. So this was planned to kind of be future science potentially. Again, it could be future classrooms for any part of the high school, middle school. Another thing that the group, I think, wrestled with was just additional site work in terms of specifically kind of the parking lot out here. And again, I think as a group, we didn't want to sacrifice the entire referendum, again, recognizing the need and the kind of the charge of the community to really be fiscally responsible with the overall tax burden on the taxpayers. So I think specifically the parking, we're hopeful that as this project continues and if there's, as we go through the process and if there's kind of money left over, that might be an area that we tackle, a little bit more work, or it's something the district can plan for in the long run. But again, overall, the idea was finding a plan and solution that really met those critical, essential needs for the district.
So I'll talk about the cost to the district and then to each individual tax-paid home. So what the survey indirectly, one piece of information that we indirectly got out of the survey was that community members care about the dollars and cents because they gave the district permission to move forward with the survey, and they think the best solution was to build a new building. However, when they saw the price tag of $57 million, that really scares them, which is not uncommon in communities, so you're not alone. So the CFAC is recommending a solution that I think is great because not only are you're getting new construction, but you're also, every student's getting something out of that. So that total comes in at $25.1 million. So that project that Clint just ran through comes in at $25.1 million. So the community, if the board were to move forward with this, the community had the opportunity to still get new construction, still let every student have the opportunity to work in new spaces, but at half the cost, less than half the cost of what, or more than half the cost of what you originally surveyed. So that $25 million, you're investing about $1 million into renovations. So the science room renovations that Clint was talking about, but then also some infrastructure renovations and also tie-ins to your existing building. And then 24 million of that is actually the new construction. And then this is your total project cost. So if the district were to move forward with this referendum, it's our job to make sure that we know that we cannot exceed $25.1 million. So we're promising you that we'll get that scope of work within that $25.1 million. And then Clint had said that the last CFAC meeting, the group went back and forth with possible other projects on top of this base project. So this was considered the base project, but then there was a science project and the site improvement. So that was coming in about $27.5 million. So the group went back to their charge and they focused on the needs, and they identified the needs as a base project of the $25.1 million. So that $25.1 million is what it costs the district as a whole. That project's going to cost $25.1 million. But what people care about is what it costs them as a taxpayer and as a homeowner in the Sevastopol community. And so this chart here on page 47, it's complex because it actually shows how your debt would be paid off. But the important thing to look at is on the far right, about 3/4 of the way down the page, you see an impact of $1.20. So that means for every $100,000 of home value, if this referendum were to pass, it would cost taxpayers $120 a year. Which, yes, that is a lot of money, but if you break it down each month, that's about $10 a month per $100,000 of home value. So that's missing out on one lunch out a month. So that's something more palatable to break down for a community member to see, yes, it's $10 a month as opposed to $120 a year. But you're getting a great solution to move forward for the next several generations of students for $10 investment a month.
Are there any other presentations?
I guess I'd be the last one. The ladies spoke as to their support of it, and I forgot. You know, the reality is I'm tied very deeply here. Both my children go to school here. My wife is a teacher here. That, you know, that gives me a lot of buy-in, a lot. Much more than a lot of taxpayers have. The work that I do on a daily basis gives me another perspective on this school building here. And the safety and security concerns me deeply here. This helps us address that problem as well. You know, again, I referenced the work that this committee put in was personal to this group. And they took their charges very seriously to be responsible with the taxpayers' dollars. Yes, it'd be great to have a brand new school, starting from scratch, but that isn't reality in today's world. This is the best we can do with the taxpayers' dollar to ensure the safety and security of our children, but also to give the teachers, the staff, the proper tools and facility to keep doing what they've been doing, and that's excelling. This will help bring that to an even higher level. So our committee does support it. I do support it. You know, we hope you take those recommendations to heart. So, thank you.
Erin, since we're filming this, so would you tell people what your position is? No? Okay. Can't do it, okay. Very good. School board, do you have any questions for the
I
committee
just wanted to
members?
say thank you to the three of you and the rest of the committee, I attended some of the meetings, and just the effort and the time you guys all put into it, is much appreciated, I know, by everyone here and I think in the community as a whole. So thank you.
And I think we thank you back because a number of you were at every meeting as well, or the majority of them. And so obviously the board was very much involved in wanting to do the best they could for the children of this community. So thank you.
Okay, if there are no questions, then thank you all very much for attending tonight. We'll be talking about this on our agenda a little bit later. Items anyone wishes to remove from the consent agenda? There are no donations that I know of, so hearing none, the consent agenda items A, B, C, and D are approved by consent. We'll move then to the administrators' reports. We'll move to the administrators' reports. I don't know if you want to move forward.
Yeah. 3 chairs for you. Won't be able to.
Gotcha.
Will I hear them now on the phone?
Mr. Bear.
Thank you. That's a great presentation. Appreciate everybody's hard work on that. I know there have been a lot of meetings. I first want to start just by thanking our summer staff, and I think all of us administrators recognize all the work that gets done here over the summer, and it's just amazing to see all the pieces come together so that we can have a successful school year. And I knew there's some specific people that we need to thank, and this building always looks the way that it does because our maintenance staff, they work extremely hard to keep this building in good shape, considering its age. They work extremely hard, so we're very lucky to have the maintenance staff that we have and appreciate their work. We all appreciate that. Our secretary staff, we just registered over 600 kids to our school district, and in 2 days we had 600 kids and parents come through here, and it's amazing that they keep multiple sheets of paper going through the registration process, multiple sheets of paper organized and do it in an efficient manner, and keep a smile and welcome those families back to our school. So we're very lucky to have that. As well as everybody else. Summer school is amazing this summer, and everything that it takes to get ready. So we're very, very lucky, and I'd like to thank everybody. Recently, we just had it was a great day today. Today we had our new staff in service, and we welcomed 3 new people to our staff today, and really had some wonderful meetings and shared a lot of information with them, and I'm sure the other administrators will comment as well. But we're lucky to attract and bring such talented people to our district. We have great things to look forward to in all those positions. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that we're going to do a substitute teacher orientation on August 22nd, and that's important. There's a number of pieces of information that we'll be sharing with them, which is now required by DPI for 3-year licenses. So that will be helpful, that training piece. But in addition to that, we really want to make our substitute teachers feel like they're part of our district. We have a shortage of substitutes. We are in dire need of more folks. So if you know of anybody that has a free day a week or a free day a month, please let them know that I'd like to have a conversation with them about how they can help us. And there are a variety of different things they can be engaged with, not just in the classroom, but in other areas as well. So if you know of anybody, please send them our way, because we need that help. Faculty in service, I just attached the year-long faculty in service for our staff, so that's an attached document for you. I think it's important that you see that we have an outline and a plan for using that time, because it is valuable time for us. I also attached the Wisconsin Forward and ACT results, and I just want to walk through that briefly, very quickly. There are 2 charts on the first page. The first chart shows our math scores for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I think you can take a look at this in comparison to the state of Wisconsin and see that our students are doing a phenomenal job once again. We had a wonderful school year last year and a wonderful state report card. This chart shows that we went up 4% on average amongst those 3 classes from last year. So they had even a better year, which is hard to imagine that you're around 85 to 90% proficient in all grade levels there. Our English scores are equally impressive. They're outstanding. On the back side of that, there's another graph that I just want to call to your attention. These are the Wisconsin State ACT assessment results for the class of 2017. That's the graduating class. And you might ask me, why 2017, why not 2018? That's because we don't get 2018 results until that class stops testing, and they test all the way through the summer. So that is not finalized for us until later, because they're still testing. They have an opportunity to test through the summer before they start their academic year. Okay? Below that, I have the 11th grade ACT assessment results. Keep in mind that they take this test in late February or early March. And I do want to say we've had a really strong tradition of our class, our juniors doing very well on this assessment. This class didn't meet that same standard. And I wanted to make you aware of that. They struggled a little bit on this test. It's not something that we didn't anticipate. We worked really hard with this class. But keep in mind a couple of factors. The ACT test is a college readiness test. It shows their readiness for their freshman year of college. And taking it in their February of their junior year, they have some gains to make. But I wanted to dig into it a little bit further. So the graph on the right-hand side shows that we have about 70% of our students that are at least ready for college in one subject area. So about 70% of those kids have readiness in at least one area, which is a positive. Digging into it a little bit further, I looked at this class in comparison to that class of 2017 as far as demographics. And I want you to understand that every class is different. Every class has different demographics. And this class is distinctly different. So comparing the class on top to the class on the bottom, there's double the amount of students with special education needs in this class. There's almost 10%, 9% higher rate of social economic needs. And there was no ELL needs in the class of 2017, but there are in this class. So there are differences, and I just want to note that each class is different. We understand that. We understand these kids, and we're working very hard with them. But I wanted to be transparent with that work that we're going to be doing. Other things, Sevastopol Achieves. I create that document for our parents and students every year to share. I've attached that. I also attached some weighted grade conference information because he asked for some additional information on what conference schools are doing. So I was able to pull that together. I just emailed all the principals in our conference, and you can see that there are 3 districts that have weighted grade system, and there are 6 districts, including Sevastopol, that do not at this time. A couple of things that were specifically of interest. I just copied the principal's comments and put them on this page. Mr. Nickel from Sturgeon Bay responded, and they do have a weighted grade system there. And so did Mr. Bosley. They do not have a weighted grade system. But Mr. Koshart responded from Algoma, and I thought his comments were interesting because they had weighted grades up until 2014. And then they, as a community, decided to go away from that model. So I wanted to just share those comments with you. But that was interesting information. Enrollment projections?
Did you want,
Sure.
the comment from Algoma, I mean, just depending on dissecting all this, you could argue that now on regular grades. So I thought that you referenced that highly as that was a significant comment, and I would just question, I'm not sure that is. His comment said basically kids are chasing to different classes to affect the GPA, but that's what kids do in regular schools, that's what they do now, that's what they do in this school, that's how it works.
Sure, yeah.
So I might throw that particular comment out, that's how they chose, I get that, but we're digging at, like we talked about in the workforce, if someone's taking a more challenging class over somebody else, and I know that would be hard to evaluate classes, and we're not driving competition, but some things can be recognized as a little more workload, teachers put on a little more on that. That's kind of the challenge, the gist of trying to get an understanding of the weighted grade system, so.
Yeah,
that was,
and I didn't need to draw specific attention to that. I think
No,
the only reason that I did is because they switched from a system to a system, and we haven't seen, that was one of my questions to them, is how long has it been in place in your
Right.
district? And most of the districts have had it for a number of years. But to see a district make a decision at a decision point like we're at was interesting.
That's
to me.
valid.
So that's the only reason. Enrollment projections look really, really good for us. I just wanted to note that there's a little bit of a decline of 5 students in our middle school, but that's because we have 37 kids coming into 6th grade, and we have 53 leaving and going into 9th grade. But overall, we're up 7 students because we have an increase of 12 students in our high school. Another thing to note is that in 2014, our enrollment for 6th through 12 was 278 students. We're looking at an enrollment approximately of 323, which is an increase of 45 students in our school. So that's significant. You know, that's right around the point where we turned around some open enrollment things, and I mean, we are growing in population, at least these numbers show that. Over the last couple of years, 45 kids is a whole grade level for us. That's a lot of kids, you know, considering where we were in 13, 14. So wanted to share that with you. And then the last thing is fall sports are, of course, starting. We're all excited about the season. I was just out on the football field watching the kids practice for a few minutes before this meeting. And we're excited. I do have on here that our first football game is the 17th, but it's actually this Saturday, and it's not against Bowler. Bowler notified us that they will not have a program this year, so instead we're traveling on Saturday down to Cedar,
Wisconsin Heights.
Wisconsin Heights.
Which isn't really a location, it's a school. It's not in a town. It's on Highway 14,
But they're very excited to get going.
west of Madison.
They're excited to play. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Just a comment, you mentioned the difficulty in finding subs, which of course is pretty universal. And I gave Kyle a sheet that I picked up from the Appleton School District that they are circulating to try to gather more subs. So you might want to take a look at that.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bear. Mrs. Margraf?
My highlights from the last board meeting are definitely the new Director Leadership Academy that I went to in Madison. It was a terrific opportunity to meet many other directors. So I had the opportunity to network. I left really confident in making some really significant connections. As I develop into this role, I think it's incredibly important to have a network in front of me and people that I can reach out to. It was really valuable, and I learned a lot. I learned that I have a lot to learn in some of this. It's good to know.
That's a good point to be.
It is a good point to be. I know what I know. I now know, and I always know what
you
I
don't
don't
know.
know. But I have a network, and I feel really good about that. Another highlight for me during that time was to go down to Madison and to meet the DPI. I guess she's the lawyer at DPI that is walking us through the audit system. And again, really great connection. Had the opportunity to be, to sit down and really just meet her and find out exactly what needs to get done, all for the basis of improvement for the future of Sevastopol. So I'm happy to report that all of the corrections are almost made, and it's all coming in under her timeline that she wants it done too. So I'm really happy about that. The other staff recruitment has been ongoing this entire summer, and I'm happy to report that interviews are done, and there's 2 names that are coming to you further this evening for the Title I associate, part-time, and then another part-time special education associate that will be the middle school. So I'm eager to close the book on hiring and just look forward to future candidates. Another, I just want to say I was really pleased that the grant went through for DPI. Congratulations on all the hard work that went into that, both Cindy and Sue. It's a tremendous step in the right direction for what our kids need in the county. And it was really nice to know that it is a consortium of all of the schools and many people working together because we're all seeing the same needs. So I have the opportunity to go to the Stride meetings, and they are at the United Way. And what was neat about this one is that it's all the other key players that are involved in this organization. So you get to see the many different people that are involved, and again, making those connections when you need to reach out to others. So it was exciting to start those, and I will be attending those monthly on Fridays to continue the work there. I also have the seclusion and restraint report. I noticed that it's on the agenda, that it's down. Would you like me to wait for that, or should I note it?
It has to be presented at that time to be approved, because the board just has to recognize that they received it.
Great, then I'll wait. All right. And then again, we've just been, we have many transition IEP meetings and 504 meetings until school starts. Staff are eager to meet with the families, and some families are really eager to make sure that things are ready to roll for their kids when the first day of school happens. So we are jam-packed with those meetings. We have nonviolent crisis training. I reported that last board meeting. That is Tuesday. And then again, our special education collaboration is continuing that week as well. But we're all hard at work on making sure that things are ready for the kids and for the teachers so we can have a great beginning of the school year. Any questions for me?
Great. Okay, thank you. Mr. Hiltz?
First off, just I continue to appreciate the warm welcome that I've received from so many different people, and I also appreciated the opportunity for registration days to see families and start recognizing faces. I know a lot of people introduce themselves, and I apologize, I'm not going to remember anybody at this point, but at least to recognize the faces was nice, and to see people who were excited to be here, and despite lines and having a lot of papers to fill out, you know, we're very happy about being at this place, so that was nice to see. I also had the opportunity to meet with some of the members of the PTO, and one of the things that we talked about was funds that they had available, and we had talked about might there be something that we could do in the short term with some of the additional funds that they had. One of the things that I had done at another school that I was at was to make sure that every kid had spirit wear. You know, I think it's important that everybody feels a part of what's going on, and the cost ends up really being minimal. I was very pleased that the membership of the PTO were all on board with the idea. In fact, to the point where they're looking at the possibility of doing this on an annual basis if they can. So we talked about doing that, doing a sign-up form during registration. We felt that that would just be too much on top of everything else that was going on. So our goal is to put something together and get that out that first week of school, and let families know that there will be no cost to them. We'll provide a shirt. We just need sizing for their children, and make sure that we can get that ordered. And the turnaround time should be pretty quick. I think it's about 2 weeks to get those in. So very excited about that. The PTO, again, is making arrangements. I just saw an email that came through today that they confirmed that Culver's is going to provide the ice cream as a part of our open house. And so I appreciate Culver's willingness to help support what we're doing here. Some of the teachers met August 7th just to talk about the revised science curriculum. I know that the 28th of September, they're going to set aside some time to meet with the publishers and talk about that, and then there'll be another day in the future where they'll talk some more. The only other project or event that I have, as I said, I'm still really getting the lay of the land, but one of the steps to that process is to really get to know the staff that I'm going to be working with. I've sent out a survey, really not a real in-depth survey, but just something to get an idea of who the staff is. And now that I've got those, I'll look through them and then set up some meetings with staff when school starts up, and really start to get to know those people and give them an opportunity to get to know me better one-on-one.
And you got furniture.
I was gonna say,
Very nice, very Packer friendly in there.
When you're born in Green Bay, you don't have the.
Wasn't that part of the evaluation?
Okay, any questions for Mr. Hiltz? Hearing none, we'll move on to Mr. Lutke. We get it right.
It's okay.
Lutke.
I bought some-
Evers,
I
Evers, they're all
I bought some names this morning too, so it's all right. First I want to highlight some safety. The safety committee has been working on having flip charts for the teachers. Run, evacuate, lockdown, modified lockdown, fire, tornado. We're gonna have all the teachers have this in a common spot in their room, so it's handy for them. Whatever the situation is, they can flip to it and have the directions, because in a stressful situation, you need to have a resource that's handy and you got it, and give you a moment to calm down, read through it and go. Innovative Printing dropped this off today for me to proof again, then I'm gonna send it back to them, but they're gonna have it by in-service time, so that's really good for us. Also, Door County has now scheduled a series of active shooter command and control trainings. Mr. Bear and I attended one in June. There are, I don't know how many they have total, but we have 5 different nights when we'll be attending from September through November. And there'll be 1 or 2 of the admin team attending, and they have EMTs, firefighters, police officers, and each night they have different people there, little different scenario, and then they're assigned different roles based on what time they would actually arrive on a scene. So we're gonna keep attending those and doing our part for that, so that's really important. And yesterday I found out from the Department of Justice that we received our safety grant for the first round for $53,338. There is a second round which just opened up today. It closes August 30th, so Stephen and Rock and I will work on round 2, and we may call Sue in to help too, but we got to move on it because August 30th will be here soon.
What do you look to use those funds for?
The first round is for shatter. You were limited to what you could use, so two-way locks for all the classroom doors and shatter-resistant film for doorways. And there's, I don't want to get too much detail, but there's 2 different sets of doors that it's allowed, and so we asked for as much as we could. And then blinds for rooms that have a window, so those could be pulled down, actually flipped real quick with magnetics, so that if we go into lockdown, you can shut that and seal it off. But you want to have that open when it's not an emergency situation. So those will be coming. Within the grant and working with the Department of Justice, we can, if things happen in the future with the building, we can hang on to it because they don't want us spending money on something that'll disappear. So we'll work through that in the process. So that was part of the first round. Second round is more designed towards training of staff and
Some mental health components. in
mental
that
health,
second
yes, and
round.
then it's not as much equipment, it's more focused that way. And I don't know how competitive that's gonna be, but I'm betting it's gonna be pretty competitive because there's only so much left in the pot of money, so.
But there's a
we'll go for it.
sizable amount left.
Yeah, so we'll go. And this is eligible for all schools, public and private in the state of Wisconsin. It's not just limited to public schools, so.
And with that, if you did not get if you did not get a grant in 1, you're still eligible for 2.
And you had to sign up by the 13th of August,
Right.
and Stephen submitted our submission to the end, so we're in line, we're hitting the deadlines as of now, so we'll see how that one turns out. Title I, Diane Genquine's working on 2 handbooks for our program. We are considered Title I school-wide. The first one she's working on is a general title handbook, and the other one is parent engagement handbook. And I have a list of some upcoming dates that you may keep in mind.
Okay. Any questions on those things for Mr. Wakey?
I have 2 comments just for, like Mrs. Margraf said, just like you said, the attitude and on the command and control of active shooter thing, it's the more you know, the less you know. So I love that you guys are going to this thing, because we got to understand a lot more before we can solve a lot of challenge. So that's awesome, and great work on the cash. I mean, getting a grant for the school should be recognized. That's awesome. You guys work very hard for that. And a lot of people are asking about it, but we do care about the tax dollars. So that grant, the previous grant, I mean, just keep up the great work. But it takes time. Everybody needs, you guys put a lot of time into that. I see head shaking, so I just want to say thank you.
Well, the Department of Justice called us and said, okay, you got some corrections and things that you found that are not going to be awarded. You have to make some adjustments. And finally I said to them, I said, well, man, we got really dinged here. And they said, no, everybody got dinged and got called up and were told. And so it was kind of a learning process.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they said every district, we've had to work with everyone to make adjustments. And I was really appreciative of Stephen coming in and doing the technology part of it, because that's not my cup of tea at all.
And
So
the fact that they gave you the opportunity to make the adjustments and didn't just.
they did that for
you know,
every district, right, yeah, it
That's
was
great.
good. Yeah, it was, so they were doing their part on their
Detail.
end, and yeah, Department of Justice was good to work with, except we got handed off like 3 times, but I don't care, as long as we got it in the end, but it was.
Persistence pays
You
off.
sit there and you worry every day.
I was worried we weren't going to get anything. Everybody else is getting money.
I know.
You know.
Yeah, they announced, I don't know, was it?
Just about everybody
80
else.
districts today? Yeah, and they announced about 80 districts today.
Oh, well,
so,
good.
Yeah, so we're in that
Okay,
club, so.
we're good.
It was a strange rollout.
Yeah, I know. I
Well,
kept hearing and hearing.
yeah.
Are we going to get anything?
Did you have anything budget-wise
Yeah.
or facilities-wise, Mr.?
Well, we'll do budget first.
Okay.
Carl prepared this document, which will be part of the annual meeting on the 28th. I just want to highlight a couple of numbers. The second column is the unaudited 17-18 budget, and you can see that our revenue exceeded our expenses, and then when you look at the top numbers, so that's a good thing. We're good with our money. There's a few reasons for that. One is some of our building projects we did not do because we didn't know the future of the building. Also, Carl arranged for our money that was in our account to be swept out from one bank into a bigger system, which gave us a higher interest rate, about $90,000 compared to only $10,000 normally. So he made us about $80,000 this year by making a simple not simple, but it was painless, I guess is the word I should use, not simple. It was painless for us, but it was his effort to get it in the bank and then swept with other public entities to earn a higher interest rate for us. So that was one very good area. If you turn to the second page, the back side of page 1, the first number down, transferred in, no, I'm wrong. Carl, where's the Fund 27?
Right, for top of first page.
I am right,
Tom, you're
okay.
right.
Okay, so you can see that for Fund 27 is special education, it always has to be even or in the black, and so we had to transfer from Fund 10 to General Fund $861,499.12. That's unaudited, but that's where that ended up. And then if you go to your last page, and you won't find this on the other part of the document, second to last page, you'll see operating transfer for another fund of $78,770.43. That's Fund 50, food services. So if you're looking for where the transfers come out of Fund 10, those are two areas we transfer out. And those two areas always have to be even or in the black. And the Fund 50 can be in the black, but it can't be profitable. So you gotta be careful in that regard too, so. So that's, and the other part of the budget I received from Baird today, and Jay probably already knows this. Here we go. This is the equalization valuation of our property within the district. For 2017, it was $1,388,253,213. The estimated 2018 valuation is $373,072,431. So it decreases by 1.1%, about $15.1 million. And you can see each municipality and how theirs moved up or down. Majority of our property is in Sevastopol Township, which dropped by 0.1%. What this affects is your mill rate. When your valuation drops, your mill rate increases because it's your total property value for what you can levy. So if you're levying with less property, then it increases. So just, it's a variable, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's just what it is.
Any questions on budget matters for Mr. Boothby? Oh.
Getting a big check on Monday.
All right, thanks.
Mailed them out today.
Oh, good. Facility, anything on facilities?
The facilities, the cement out front is supposed to be done by school starting, so we're holding firm on that. The back driveway, we're addressing that with paving the first 400 feet and then having speed bumps put in. The speed bumps will be on the paved portion and on the gravel portion. Rock Lautenbach received 3 bids on the back project. 2 of the companies could not do all the speed bump work. In fact, one said you cannot use our speed bumps on gravel, so they were kind of out. But he's got the bids and we're moving forward with that. It might not get done before school starts because the paving companies are pretty busy this time of year, but they're going to get to it. And also we're going to get breakaway cones. I want to put big rocks out there and funnel the cars in. But snowplow did not like that idea because they like that with snowplow.
No.
So we're ordering some breakaway cones out there to funnel the traffic in there. So that'll be good. And it's the first 400 feet from Rip Road, so that has nothing to do with the building project, if there is one, and all that scope of that, that's totally separate, but something we had to address. And then the front parking lot, we of course would go into angle parking, which I just like saying, so.
Progress.
Yeah.
Progress, okay, very good. We'll move on to the old business then, and we have the second reading for some policies. Is there a motion to approve policy 2271, youth options program?
I would move to approve policy 2271, early college credit program.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then look for a motion on the second reading of policy 5113.01.
I move.
Part- Go ahead.
I move we approve the second reading of 5113.01 course options.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next policy, 8210, school calendar. So motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve second reading of policy 8210, school calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have the two job description policies.
I move to approve policy 3120.01 and policy 412001, job descriptions.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I have one comment. I noticed, I like the ability that, within reason, the district administrator can change some responsibilities in 4120. I think that administrative leadership flexibility is great. Why is it not, can we put it in the other policy? Or not, or is that not appropriate because of the different group of staff it applies to?
The certification would be.
They have
from-
certification, but I think there may be still some flexibility, but each individual teacher has a contract, and so there's no language in there that says that. Administrators all have it in their contracts as any other duties as assigned, but we
Right.
don't have that in their actual individual contracts. I can look into that some more. I recommend we approve it tonight, and I can revisit that part of it. Yeah, no, I understand what you're.
And I think obviously the administrative team has to manage that properly, and if it's not, then we have to do something about that. But I suspect this group will do well, so flexibility in a reasonable fashion, so. All right, I appreciate you thinking about it, but, yeah, I didn't want to hold this up, though. I just was curious on that.
Any other questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then policy 5330.
I would move to approve 5330, administration of medication/emergency care.
Second?
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Policy 5421, grading.
I move we approve the second reading of policy 5421, grading.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Then we have the memorandum of understanding with Bellin Mental Health Services, which was long and tedious reading.
Yeah.
Bellin provided the
I suppose.
document, and then I sent it to our legal, who made adjustments, and I went back to Bellin. Bellin agreed with the adjustments that our law firm recommended, so it's
I
good to
would
go.
move to approve the memo of understanding with Bellin Mental Health Services.
Second.
Questions or discussion on that?
Kyle, when you look at the MOU, is that synonymous, or is that pretty consistent with the other vendors' MOUs with their providers? Can I ask you that, Adam?
I think Bellin was the only provider, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, that had this up and running in other communities and other counties. And so theirs was often used as the model. So, but each one did differ because each one's legal team had to assess it. So they were not exactly the same, but we used Bellin as the primary model for most things that we did.
The portion that our legal had the concern was with making sure it was a witness up, or the privacy was in there. they wanted to make sure that was double covered, so that's what our legal said wasn't beefed up enough in Bellin, so.
The confidentiality piece?
Yes,
Okay.
because we wanted to make sure it was within that document. I think Bellin thought, well, we're health professionals, we're sworn to do that already, but it's okay to document it.
No, I agree.
So remind me about when this takes place, because I see in January, February of 2020, there's a board approval.
You know, like-
School district, 2-year plan.
No, you're on the next item.
Oh,
That's okay.
okay, good. I confused those. Very good.
It's okay. yeah.
Okay, any other
It
questions?
wasn't really a break, right? It just flowed out.
Yeah, dude.
Something else.
She's looking at her computer and just
What the
flowed to the
heck?
next one, right?
Well, I did that today too. I was looking at a meeting. These don't make sense together. Okay, any other questions on the memorandum of understanding? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you, I think this is a great step forward for our kids, appreciate it.
Then we'll move on to discuss the strategic planning plan.
I met with Aaron Malazewski from CISA 7, and he and I came up with this time frame for starting our work, and there's where you see the planning and awareness. You can kind of move forward. Well, he's got where he wants. August to October is finding our focus group and who we think should be in it, but he really thinks the work should start after November. And actually, he was putting it off till January because of Christmas break and whatnot, and the election coming up in November. He didn't want the strategic plan interfering with that work at all. And he knew we had a nice group of people help us out with the CFAX. So his work will actually start in January, but during this August through October, we're supposed to start identifying folks that we need to help us in this program. So it was a good visit. It was a good start. It's gonna be a lot of work, but it's okay. It's good.
So what do, as far as that identification, do you need the school board to help? How are we gonna, what do you need us to do right now, if anything?
I need the school year to start.
Okay.
And then the ad team's gonna start working on it, and then we'll get some of you to help out as
Okay.
we go. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's where we're at. It's like, we gotta get school going, and then we'll start working on this.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure September, October, gonna be busy time around here, so.
So you don't need anything from us right now?
Not at this
other
point,
than-
I'm just letting you know that we met,
Okay.
we have a time frame, but it's still going forward. That's what I really want you to know.
Okay, very good. The picnic the staff picnic on August 27th, the notice went out to everybody today. The Volkmans get the prize for being the first to respond.
It's all on my wife.
It was organized. The kitchen staff was not interested in,
I spoke with 3 different members of the kitchen staff, and they said they'd like to come as regular staff members.
not that hard. So Karen and I have it pretty much organized, if you can come that night. Hand out burgers or something, that's great.
And when did you want the staff to RSVP by?
Sunday to Lisa via email.
The 26th, I think.
Okay, that's giving us much time, yeah, that's good, yeah.
They probably won't get that much time, because if I don't hear from them by Wednesday, I'm gonna be calling them and asking them. So
Okay.
that I can make sure I get our hot dogs and burgers ordered.
We'll help spread the word.
So, Sunny's is having their teacher appreciation night that night.
Oh.
Got it out on Facebook, yeah.
Really?
Hope that doesn't damage our attendance, well, whatever.
I did not know they had one of those.
See?
Yeah.
I think it's their first one.
Are you signed up already, or are you
I'm going
thinking going to Sunny?
No, I haven't. I'm trying to work out and get both in.
Sunny's runs until 7, so everybody can come here, and we're there at 6. And
Eat
Can
like
we
crazy?
just move our
Crazy.
thing to Sunny's?
Right.
Yeah, it would be easier. You have all your work times, just go to Sunny's.
That's a good idea. Maybe I'll talk to Cheesy about that. Yeah.
You're gonna get your burger to go, and you're gonna eat it on your way to
All right, okay. We'll move on to new business then, and we have a document regarding employee personal leave to look at and take action on.
I'm looking to add some language. We've changed it last year and it works, except a lot of staff likes using their personal days in May. And when I taught, that's when I like using mine as well. But we know with our shortage of subs, we don't want them all piled in the same days. So we're looking to limit 3 personal days on a particular date, which should help us with our sub and kind of spread it out. And if we tell the staff when they come back in September, August, they'll know, and then they can plan accordingly, and then they won't be upset in May when everyone tries for the same Friday in May. Because I would always take it in May because the Brewers are still in it. September they weren't always.
I don't know if they'll be in now either.
I don't know either. I'm worried, Jay. I know.
Yeah.
So it's just a way to help out with our sub need of having our people here and spreading them out a little better.
Would someone like to make a motion on this, one way or the other?
I'd make a motion to approve the change in the personal leave policy to only have 3 staff members off on the same
Date.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
Is there a, for discussion, is there a scenario where you'd have the ability with this policy, or is it just changing of the wording so that if we get a surplus of subs, which we probably won't, but then, there's some discretion there to say, hey, we got everything covered, so 2 other people, I don't know what the numbers are of the full staff actually, so 3 per day and how limiting that is. I think because of our sub situation, that makes sense, because I'm very familiar with all the calls going, oh, we need subs, Luckily, I'm not qualified, so, but, I don't know, I'm just asking.
Right, you're saying if we know what, there's a date coming up and we have 3 requests already and a 4th one comes in, we know we're gonna be fine.
If
We have to
in
flexibility.
that case.
I prefer to keep it firm for this first year and try it like this and see where it's at, and then we can always adjust later.
That's a
At this
fair
point,
point.
I'd like to
That's good
just
advice.
try it this way.
Thank you, I agree with it, all right.
Okay, if there are no other questions or discussion, all in favor of approving that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we have the employee handbook to approve. Is there a motion to approve the employee handbook?
I'll move to approve the employee handbook.
A second to that?
Second.
Okay, questions, discussion? What were the big changes? I mean, I know you changed the start time of school
Yeah, we
for
added
staff,
that in.
and then the step plan,
The-
salary ladder, I mean.
The changes we made for support staff 2 months ago, those are in here as well. And then all the numbers for salaries and all that's insurance, all those numbers have been updated, hourly rates. Those are the changes we've had.
Any other questions, comments, discussion on the employee handbook? Hearing none, all in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Then we will move on to the seclusion and restraint report.
For the past school year, we had 3 seclusions, we had 2 restraints. Oh, I'm sorry, we had 4 seclusions and 2 restraints. They were both special education students who were in the elementary school. So student A had 3 seclusions and 2 restraints, and student B only had 1 seclusion. Interesting to note that student A was all in the beginning of the school year. All of these seclusions and restraints were. And then as the school year, both in the first couple of months, and then as the school year progressed, there was 0. That's all I have.
Is there a motion to approve the seclusion and restraint report?
I'll make a motion to approve the seclusion and restraint report.
Second.
Questions or discussion from anyone? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Lisa, I probably just missed it, but did you do the MLA, the FMLA? I'm just going down, unless I have it wrong in my,
That's in.
The FMLA is in
Closed session.
closed session.
Yeah.
Whew, what do you mean this time? Okay, okay, we have this document, 2018-19 fundraisers. Anybody have anything they want to? We look at this every year and it never winds up being all of them, right? You get requests throughout the year from groups to do fundraisers that are just approved outside this document.
Correct.
Looks like there's a few more this year. I don't know. A little more.
Well, our music department knows they're going on trips, they have a
This
couple.
was last year,
Yeah, I
this
know.
year, so.
Yeah.
Well, pretty similar.
They're,
Few more.
and some of these I'm looking, and I just have to pick out a couple of groups because you have to give an example. To raise money for future trips.
Well, sometimes they only go every other year, don't they?
Well,
The deal with music?
August is a tough time because when they come back in September, then the groups start meeting with their students and then they start playing what activities they're gonna do, what they wanna accomplish. October would be a little better if you gave the teachers to the October board meeting.
Right.
Then they can say, okay, and then even if you're a spring coach or a spring activity, you know September, October, I gotta hit this, get it in, and then it'd be a little better document.
Plus, they're meeting with the kids that are in the clubs and in the events, getting their input as to what they want to do, what they want to fundraise for, what ideas do they have for fundraising.
Right, because some groups can be as active as they want to be and have multiple activities or just a couple events throughout a year. So what you're going to do and how many kids are joining, whatever it is, you don't know in August. But this has always been an August agenda item. Yeah.
I don't know if it seems like we should look at this in October, after they've been at school for a month and met with their clubs.
Kind of just teeing up that we put this on the October,
That would allow the teachers to come back and meet with their students in September, have their plan, get it approved, and then start their fundraising. And if they really want to do a fundraiser in September, they should have it that October for the next September. I don't think there'll be many of those though, because we start school and there's some sales, but not, there's some, fall sports.
There's some things here during the summer, the golf outing coming up.
Right, but that's the annual event, and he would know that in
So he knows
October.
already.
If he knows in August he's gonna do golfing in next July, he knows it in October, so.
I don't think there are a lot of new, I don't think there are any really new fundraisers here. They're all things that people do every year for, their sports, for their classes, for the trips.
Well, and one thing I brought up in ad team yesterday was Culver's nights. Culver's approached us last year and said, hey, we'll do nights if you come and man the door and hand out coupons and greet people and wipe up tables, we'll donate a percentage for that night. I don't want to wear out our welcome at Culver's, but I also want our groups to have equal opportunity at that. So as an ad team, I think we've got to organize that so that we're not at Culver's every Wednesday night, but maybe once a month or something, or every other week or some system. It has to be a better system than, it's great Culver's is offering that. And it just so happens that the lady that's with this Culver's up here has also got the one in Galena, Illinois. So when I was in my last district, we worked with them quite a bit. And you can fry them too, because Galena, Southwestern, Cuba City, Warren, us, we all were using them, and that got to be quite a bit.
It isn't just
so.
school groups that use them either. I mean,
Yeah, there was other.
Stark County has
Mhm.
been there
Yeah,
different nights.
so.
But I don't know that I don't think.
No, they've been very
aware of
generous and great, but we've gotta,
That is a busy place.
yeah.
coming to us is really a notification. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, and the community will self-adjust where they want to donate their money, because, sometimes we talk about the number. So, I mean, I'm not sure the time the school board gets notified is critical. So if we change that notification time, if it helps the cycle time, it makes sense. So what do we?
So what is what's the school board's pleasure? Approve this tonight or table it until October after teachers have a chance to maybe, staff have a chance to fine tune this? We'll look for a motion either way.
If we approve this and there's a change, do they just come back to us, or it's?
Well, they go to their-
it's
Rather than
part of
going
the-
to us, and we're doing it, so then, this isn't a finished document, basically, but it'd be nice if in October, it'd be like, okay, here you go, that's it, and if you have a great idea in May, well, sorry, you gotta catch it next year then, you know.
I think that idea is just to make
It's just a
people
little
think a
more-
little
it's
bit
little-
more
it's-
about the fundraising, so
it's
they
just
aren't
been-
carrying such large, some are carrying really large balances in their activity funds. And you gotta spend it out somehow.
And you have to be organized, you know, okay, it's October 15th, or whatever day it is, okay, get it in, you know. It's easier to plan with the kids here.
I like a fixed date, so everyone targets, and if you're telling us with the school cycle, October's better, that sounds good, so. Do you want, do we want to?
Make a motion to table it?
Is
Is that what you're asking?
Well, I honestly, what I'm thinking, I'm not sure the school board, the discussion, a limited discussion, I'm not sure it's significant. Meaning, we can approve this now, if there's a change, we'll revisit that. If we don't and delay it, we're not carving anything out of resources, we're just approving this for awareness. So if it's some kind of, do you guys ever watch?
You know, and like he said, it's a working document, because there's a lot of clubs that are not even represented on here that do fundraisers because they haven't met with their students. So they haven't really had those conversations. So, I mean, there's the ones that are always the reoccurring, but there's several groups that are not necessarily on it.
Well, why don't we approve it, but then have with an action or caveat that we're gonna change the schedule.
Future.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that's fair, the group now doing something.
Okay, I move that we approve the fundraising list for 2018-19 with an understanding or direction to the superintendent to change the schedule so it's more conducive to the planning cycle of the staff.
I'll second that.
Sorry, Carl.
Discussion
You had
or
all that.
questions?
And I would say that, I mean, they're still gonna, with an allowance of some additions to it within reason for the fact that they haven't finalized their clubs.
Okay, if there is no other discussion or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is
Carol,
carried.
did you get some of that? We can wait a second.
Oh, I forgot to wait for Carl. Please ask
Okay.
if you
Well, this one I didn't, because I wasn't sure what you were gonna do with this one, so approve 18-19
Fundraising.
fundraising with understanding that clubs may come back later. Do you want to put a date on that, or by October with additional, or is he leaving that open?
I think the way this has been, it's just been open throughout the year so that the administrators can have the ability to approve something that comes up. Is the way it has been in the past.
So I'll say approve 18-19 fundraisers with understanding that clubs may come back throughout year with other proposals. Does that work? MC. Good, got it.
Okay, then all in
And
favor
Sue,
say
you
aye.
seconded?
Aye. Yes.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Then we have some first readings of policies. The first one, 5517, student anti-harassment. Is there a motion to approve that?
I would move to approve policy 5517, student anti-harassment.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Lots of legalese here.
Yeah.
And this policy is consistent with our anti-bullying policy?
Yes, because Neil works on both, so yes.
All in favor of approval of 5517, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Policy 5540, the schools and governmental agencies. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of that?
I would move to approve the first reading of policy 5540, the schools and governmental agencies.
I'll second. Questions or discussion on that one?
Again, legal language, basically minor changes here.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First reading of policy 5610, suspension and expulsion.
I move we approve the first reading of policy 5610, suspension and expulsion.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Policy, first reading of policy 5771, search and seizure.
I'll move to approve first reading of policy 5771, search and seizure.
Second,
Questions or discussion?
again, lots of legal language.
Hearing none other, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Policy 5830, student fundraising.
I'll move to approve policy 5830, student fundraising.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
There's a lot about this food stuff in here, which,
Mhm.
I mean, how compliant can we really be? I mean, the board requires that fundraisers by student clubs and organizations that involve the sale to students food items and/or beverages that will be consumed on campus. The food or beverages items to be sold comply with the current USDA dietary guidelines for Americans and Smart Snack rules. Each child shall be permitted two fundraising exceptions per school year where foods and beverages that are not allowable under the Smart Snack rules can be sold. How can we
Correct.
comply with that?
It says you can have two, so a kid could be involved in two that were candy bars or cookie dough, you know? How you can comply with it, because you're thinking of a student that might be out for 3 sports and then 2 clubs and they got 5 things, and then, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying.
Well, does a broad fry qualify?
Or concession, hot dogs and
Pringles.
Gatorade and candy bars and,
Yeah, but those
Big
aren't
snack
necessarily- some of
sale?
that stuff isn't necessarily a fundraiser,
Bernard's
it's
Pizza?
just you have a stand.
Right, I mean, how do we declare, that's the tricky.
Yeah, but those are fundraisers, because in the end, you're raising funds.
Well.
I know.
Good God.
who tracks?
Pringles.
I mean, is
We're
that
no
legal?
different than any other district that
Right,
has
is
a
that-
concession
No,
stand.
right,
I
right,
get
right,
that,
right,
but
right.
I'm just
That
saying,
has to be illegal.
Right.
you know.
But 1 week you're out selling pizza because you're.
So the
in
feds
this group.
aren't gonna come down on you with this policy that you
Well, and
violated
it
or
does
something?
say that will be consumed on campus.
Right, but
Right.
when you've got concession stands at every home sporting event, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know,
Selling baked goods after
Well-
school.
Do students,
Sorry, I mean,
well, I guess students do run
FFA runs
the
the
basketball
concession
concession
stand.
stand.
Right, so then do you look at it as concession stands for all the seasons as one fundraiser, or each night as a fundraiser?
I would say it's a whole season. I mean, it's the
Well, of
same
course, that's what
fundraiser.
we're gonna say, right?
Well, I
but-
wouldn't argue
right,
that, of course.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and this all has to do with food service laws.
Right. That's funny. That's why our vending machines can't be turned on until a certain time of the day as well.
Right.
I understand.
Mhm.
There was a motion to approve. Is there further discussion, questions? I guess I'll call the question and say all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Knowing that, yeah, you can't hardly monitor it. Policy 6800, system of accounting.
Yeah, I know.
Mayor, motion to approve that first reading?
I move we approve the first reading of policy 6800, system of accounting.
Second,
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have policy 7530.02, staff use of personal communication devices.
I make a motion to approve first reading of policy 7530.02, staff use of personal communication devices.
Second.
In this policy, it refers to vehicles as being board-owned. And I recall we had some other policies where we changed that language and made it.
District.
District-owned. I can't tell you exactly.
Yeah, that was about 2 reviews.
The first paragraph, board-owned.
And then a board, and then it refers to a board employee. Should that be a district employee? I'll look for where it was.
Change that.
Email it to you. So it would be- I didn't make a note of it, it's just something I saw.
Well, it's on the first paragraph, it says a PCD is board-owned, so that's a personal communication device. But you're talking about the vehicle being owned by
It talked
the
about.
district, right?
Right, I'll look for them and I'll email you the paragraphs, I saw those in. Any other questions or discussion on that one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
On that motion, does that go approve first reading as amended?
With changes, or however you say that, I'm not sure.
Take out any board language to have it be district language. And then we'll have a second
But
reading later.
we have had this discussion in the past, does anyone know the final, is it significant, is that our preference? I mean, does anybody know? I
Neola's-
understand the logic, but on nomenclature, does every board, is that how it is? I don't know, right?
The language came from Neola, and they work
Right.
with thousands of districts, so I'm
Right.
sure that that's what they recommend, but I can understand where, as a board member, you feel like, well, board-owned, it's mine as one of
Well-
7 compared to district.
Right, I
understand.
understand, that's what I'm questioning. I think that I see the personal side of it, I'm like, yeah, we don't own it, but
I questioned it,
represents
I only
the
questioned it
district, I
because
guess.
there were other policies that we changed it in.
Right,
So if we're
well,
gonna be
right, yeah.
consistent,
Yeah.
that's why. I don't see it as mine, but we haven't changed, so. Then we have a letter of resignation from Jennifer Scanlon. Is there a motion to approve Jennifer's resignation?
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of Jennifer Scanlon.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
How long
Oh.
has Jennifer been with us?
I believe 10 years.
Have you had conversation with her?
I did not, she emailed this to Melissa Margraf, so,
Will someone conduct an exit interview with her?
yeah, we'll have the same company that's done. In fact, we have some for closed session tonight for the recent employees.
Any other questions then? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks to Jennifer for her years of service to us. Then we have some alternative open enrollment applications. We have,
And this is fresh, and Carl had someone at 3 o'clock today with paperwork.
so Carl, since this is so fresh, do we have room for all these children?
If you look at number 1, we have room. Number 2, we do not. And that was a whole long discussion, and a lot of that came about with registration and that. 3 we do, 4 we do, 5 we do not because of special ed, 6 we do.
We don't have a program to support number 5?
We do, we don't have any room in that program.
Oh, no room,
No
okay.
room. So they would be placed on a waiting list.
All right. Do any of these children have a sibling already attending Sevastopol?
The only one might be number 2, the 4K. But I don't know that, I don't remember that for sure.
Well, that's, is that part on, should be on the paperwork, right?
It doesn't matter to us. It was
That's
just a
not-
curious
Well,
question.
that's not part of our policy right now.
For me, it was just a question. So then,
We're already over capacity in 4K.
we'll look for a
We
motion.
weren't over capacity in 4K until registration. So if they would have applied in July, we would have said, oh, we got room, because in our child find days, our open houses for 4K, we didn't have that many attend.
Right.
Through registration,
Because
a lot of 4Kers came forward.
during open application,
District kids.
Correct.
during open application, we approved, or there was 6 of them that were approved, because we had room. But during registration, it was like 10 or 12 district families that registered at that time for 4K. That put us over the, and district comes first. I mean, we have to take them.
So if they'd applied earlier and we'd approved them, they'd be in?
They'd be in.
Right, because we didn't know the residential ones existed. And we had 2 days, 2 different days where we invited folks in to come for a welcome to 4K orientation. And so I don't know how else to get word out to the people that come in.
And if you take one, you
Is there
can't renege on your offer, correct?
Correct, they're in, yeah. They don't get bumped out because all of a sudden there's a resident one, because we'd have the same thing in the 3rd grade.
Right.
A couple of those 43 are open enrolled, but they were open enrolled, and then we gained residential students.
Yeah, once they are in, unless they pull them out, they are in until they graduate.
Okay.
So then we'll look for a motion. We'll look for a motion to approve students 1, 3, 4, and 6 transferring into Sevastopol.
I'll make a motion to approve students 1, 3, 4, and 6 into the Sevastopol School District.
May I recommend you put 2 and 5 on the waiting list?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Can we do that in the same
Yes.
same motion?
Mhm.
Okay.
And to put students number 2 and number 5 onto the waiting list.
I'll second that.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And then there is 1 transfer out. So we look for a motion to approve that transfer out.
I would move to approve the student 1 transfer out of Sevastopol.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. A procedure for inviting elected officials and/or candidates to board meetings for some discussion.
Has there been a lot of outside interest? Have they approached us?
No, no one's approached us. Sue had mentioned at one meeting that she could maybe get Caleb Frostman to come and talk to us. I can admit, I was a little bit hesitant of that because there's another election, he's a candidate. There's another election coming up. And I feel like we have plenty of opportunities to get information on political candidates outside the board table, which shouldn't be partisan. And if we invite one candidate, we need to invite the other. And then if we're going to invite anybody in, I think we should have a list of questions for them and not let them just come and talk to us about what they want to talk to us about. We would have specific questions. So, so that's kind of the basis of the item, and so that's the board's, pleasure. Do we want to invite political candidates in? Do we want to wait until they're in office? Do we want to invite people that are in office in to talk to us?
It's been so long since we've had a senator who is truly willing to listen to anything about education that I think we, at some point, need to take advantage of the opportunity to work with a new senator.
I would agree, but I think the school board's best interest is to stay out of the elections, especially this generation. I'm sorry, folks, the political environment is so toxic. I don't care what side you're on, it's crazy. So I highly recommend the school board does not get involved. After the election's passed and whoever's in, then I think that, and because we've actually talked, Joel stopped in and at some other pass,
absolutely.
Mr. Kitchens.
Yeah,
We have
So,
the governor here.
But I think,
This is sort of a different situation right now. I mean,
Being that.
How-
But I think after it's
Yeah,
decided,
well, I'm, do
I
we
think
need
once they're
a
elected.
rule set on this? I would agree. If we're in
I'd be
the
more than happy to
heavy
have them.
debate,
Right.
political season or election season, let that play out
When
in
the
the
signs
public.
are off the.
Yeah, but
yards.
once they're in office, yeah, if they'll listen to our needs and
I know
budget
that
concerns.
if Caleb is the successful candidate, I know that he will be very interested in.
Yeah, and Joel has always been.
Oh,
too.
yeah,
So either one, but
absolutely.
I just think it's a sort of a different situation right now.
Right now.
I think after they're elected, yes, I would not necessarily as candidates.
Yeah.
I like your idea too, Lisa, of having prepared questions,
Mm-hmm.
so that we're uniform in our query of individuals.
Yeah.
We're real consistent about that.
WASB has developed sets of questions to ask
That'd be
that we could
perfect.
certainly look at.
Because that would be actually good and as we do that.
And would you develop a list of which elected officials you're bringing in?
We have only 2 at the state.
Well, yeah, are you looking state,
Well, I might,
where are you, that's what
I
I'm
might
asking.
say that if
is
we're
which
bringing
ones-
someone in, maybe if we have the planning time, we discuss it at some type of a meeting to establish the questions that we all agree, because, you know, one year might be more on safety funding, one might be on school budget, or one is the requirements that DPI drives down, and if they could influence that, so
I can
maybe-
bring in starter questions.
Yeah, there you go, great.
So,
Because we don't want to waste our time either, but.
so I don't know, do we need a motion to say that we will not invite candidates in? Or was this just,
I don't think you need a formal thing
pleasure of
right
the-
now. This is sort of
this is the
different right now.
philosophy of this school
Yeah.
board? We're not
Okay.
binding another school board with something.
Might change.
Okay,
I would agree.
okay, then we have stipend positions.
Go Kyle.
Okay, well,
Excited about this.
yeah, I'm excited about this.
I can tell.
I met, Lisa sometimes did, with the compensation committee, and we came up with the current list that was there, plus we came up with the teachers basically prepared multiple lists of items that are on the list, not on the list, should be on the list, could be on the list, quite a quandary. So I took those 7 or 8 lists and I combined it into one document. And I don't know, when you got your board pack of it made sense, I hope it did, but in the black is existing positions as they were listed in the book sometimes. So if we walk our way down, number 1 I've got crossed off because I don't think we need that agricultural summer work. It's built into the ag teacher's contract and he knows that. So it's like twice in there, so there's no sense to have it twice. The second item, I don't know if I'm gonna go through all of them, but we may need to have a special work session for this, because it's not a done document yet, but we've gotta get going for the school year. The second item, the AODA peer leader coordinator, and in parentheses, you have SAD. That's how it was listed in the accessory booklet we had. SAD hasn't been getting paid the money for this, so it's been Project 180. But when we compiled this, we didn't know this at that time. Athletic director, has a stipend. There's no record of how many prep periods are allotted. However, in the past, practice has been two class periods per day. And then we have curriculum chair, $900 each, and there was 5 in 2017-18. Destination Imagination coordinator, there has been 2 coordinators in the past. And then there's a coach for each team, and that's dependent upon how many teams we have. When you're in the area of drama, we have 1-act play, all-school play, and musical. We don't have all 3 every year. We typically have a musical and one of the other 2 in the spring. I have set design and musicians in red because those aren't on the current list. However, they are being paid out of the drama budget. So we're still paying those positions and those people, but they weren't in existence. So I think they should be just plain listed out. Items 10 and 11 for elementary music, that was rolled into a contract when our current elementary teacher for music started, so there's no need to have them because it's similar to the ag summer work. FFA advisor is different than ag summer work. FBLA, I crossed that one off because I don't have any recall of when we had a chapter here last. Forensics, I eliminated the assistant and the judge per meet. We haven't had an assistant coach in quite a while. We need some guidelines on all of our sports and activities, when there should be an assistant and when not, or an additional coach. What else was there about that? Oh, the judge per meet. We don't put in for basketball officials or baseball officials, so I don't know why judge per meet is in this list. It's not really a stipend position. Jazz band, I put that in as a new item because I value that. She works with them 2 mornings before school. That's different than pep band, because pep band's at the ball games, and this is a different group of students, not the same group, and she's been doing it on her own time. I think it's worth something. Journalism, we do not have an assistant. Math team, the 6th grade math Olympiad, I added that because I valued it, so I put it in there. And again, I don't think all this should just be my thoughts, but these are my thoughts here now. But I did think it was too big of lists to have a whole group of staff work on it, because then they're judging each other and valuing each other and saying what should be on the list, what shouldn't be, and that turns colleagues against colleagues. That's administration's job, and that's why we get paid the big bucks. So this is my list. The second page is a continuation. The mentor, which we had the program started today, has been ongoing. The reason I have a question mark by it is because we've been funding it through a grant, which we do with Southern Door, and it's been an annual grant. It's been in place for, oh gosh, 5, 6, 7 years maybe. Just that someday that money source state may say we're done with that program, but it's there now. I think it's a valuable program. I crossed off math, coach, and literacy because we don't have folks doing that at this point. Mock trial, we're going to have mock trial and unknown when it last existed. And then you have your NHS, pep band, peer mentor coordinator, public information officer number 23. That's our website, but now with Stephen in his role as technology coordinator, that can be eliminated because that's part of his job's description. State and national recognition honors, we've not had that, so I don't know what it is, but it's on the list, and there was no dollar amount with it, so I don't understand why it's there. Student council advisor, and I believe that's only high school. I don't know if the middle school one I looked up doesn't get paid, but that's something maybe we should consider for the future, but that comes later. And then there's a few hourly ones that I kind of crossed off. The vocal music, that again was part of the contract when we hired our last elementary music teacher. Top performing pay, I don't know what that is. So, and there's no dollar amount by it. Unused personal day was on there without a dollar amount. We might want to consider this because if a teacher would go a year without using their 2 personal days, a sub costs us $96 for the pay plus benefits. And if a teacher went the whole year without using 2 personal days, it might be cheaper to pay them a small stipend. That's something.
Do they lose their personal days at the end of the year?
Personal days don't carry over from year to year, correct? Yeah. So you start with 2, you get 2 for the year, but yeah, they expire. So I know when I was a teacher, if you didn't use a sick day, you got a bonus, and I never was sick because I was going to get that $200 because it's cheap, yeah. But
Boy, you came to school sick all the time?
I did, until one day my
Spread germs?
principal sent me home, you bet. Yeah, so I did do that.
Just like the kids.
Yeah, just like the kids. The district newsletter editor, after each of our 4 times of making our newsletter this last year, we've had 3 teachers who take all the articles. Not only do they proof them, but then they, I don't know what the appropriate term is, stock them on the sheets so they can go to print.
Layout.
Layout's the right word. And I think that's worth something, so I added item 30 to something new.
But that's really $1,200 then.
Correct, right, because they're doing that, right. And it would be, we are on the cycle to continue doing 4 per year. Coaching stipends, and I have a couple mistakes on here. The one is wrestling is on here, it's in the existing list, but our wrestling is run by Sturgeon Bay, they're the host school, and we pay them for theirs, and we have no control over what they pay their coaches and not, so we could eliminate that off the list. And soccer rates should be the same as baseball and softball because the rates are the same and they have the same positions available. But we should have some conversation about how many coaches we need at each level and when we get an additional coach because of the numbers of students out. For example, volleyball has a head varsity, assistant varsity, JV, freshman, and junior high has two, one for 8th grade, one for 7th. There's years when you need a freshman coach, and there's years when you don't, but who's determining that and where is it at that, okay, you get to this threshold and we're gonna get another coach or another team. And that will vary from sport to sport because number of kids that are on the court, how many playing time they can have and where the divide is, but we don't have those numbers anywhere listed. And then the next page is hourly job rates, and I believe these hourly rates have not been changed in recent years at all. I don't think they've been touched at all. The first 6 are things that have been going on around here, and 7 has 2, I don't have a rate on that one. Number 8 should be eliminated at this point because Stephen's videotaping the meetings. And I'm sure there's other things that people think should go on the list. And that brings me to my last page, and please mark this one up too, because, like I said, administration makes these decisions, but I do think the people working here will have ideas what should be paid not. So I have a sheet here, proposed stipend position form. They tell us what the position is, give us a job description, how many hours they work on it, what grade level of students, the number of students they have participating, and what they're seeking. But I think this is just a rough form. I think it should be tweaked a bunch because there are quite a few things that people think, hey, I do this, it's worthy, is it or not? And just because I didn't put it on the list doesn't mean it should be left on the chopping floor.
So
Yeah.
I'd like, the long-term goal for me is, there's a lot of stipends, i.e. there's a lot of money we're paying here. And I personally don't understand it. So I don't know if there's the CISA 7, they have some standards or what's expected. And then, honestly, all coaches are not created equal. If a coach has their kid at the practice or at the game, and you're dealing with your kid more than you're coaching, versus another coach who dedicates his weekend and his nights. We don't evaluate that. Sign up for head coach, yeah, you get paid. How you do, we don't care. All right, there's some head coaches are amazing, and there's some music people. Some music people put so much time in. So we're not going to fix this today, I know, but I'm just saying we need to really start thinking about.
If you don't produce, you don't.
I breathe. I took a deep breath today. When do I get paid extra? That's what I'm seeing here, because I'm not an academic guy. I'm a hardworking. Where bottom lines matter a lot, So educate me.
Okay.
Why this is critical to this school district.
Because the contract that the staff member has is to perform their duties during the regular school day. These activities and coaching and assignments happen beyond the scope of their normal school assignment. So in order to take that on, there's a stipend built in because you can't just tell teacher A, you're going to be the basketball coach and you're going to get on the bus all winter long and you're going to run all these practices and be charged these kids. And teacher B, you're going to say, oh no, you're not going to do that, and they get the same salary.
I do believe there are some that I would agree with. I'm just
Right.
not sure 4 pages of them. And I don't disagree, it would be a hard discussion, to your point, right? What people see as value, and I'm not saying just one opinion. I think there's like a 5-year plan. That's why I went to the job description, just to see where I'm sitting from. There's most companies out there, if some extra work has to get done, sometimes they come down to you. I'm sure you've done in the past, hey, we gotta get this done. We got a family, they only can come in late. Can you meet with them late?
And our staff does that.
I know they do, they're a great staff, don't get me wrong, but
Right.
I'm also looking at this list collectively, and when does it end?
I think what Dave's trying to say is there should be some balance and maybe get clarification, like what is the best practice of
Schools, yeah.
school, do all schools have a 4-page list of stipends and
I'd say for a district our size, yes. I'd say that's about the ballpark. I bet you a school district like Green Bay is a lot longer. I'll tell you Benton's a lot shorter, but it's all
District
to scale. Yeah, it's all to scale, what you have and what you offer and don't offer. Like,
No, finish.
well, the other part is, back in the day negotiating, this all would have been hammered out at the table. And you would have negotiated with the teachers, that happened in 2000 and, what year was Act 10? 2011. And it depended when your contract expired. And then we had some rough times here, so it's kind of got discombobulated, and now it's time for us to wrap our arms around it. But it's quite a concept. The teachers were great in putting together their lists and trying to frame it. But then we got to the point where I said, okay, this summer I said, I'm just going to tackle it myself because we can't have too many cooks in the kitchen either on it. So I tried to frame it down to this from this. And
I like what
it's-
you did. I mean,
I know, but so there's some judgment, but I understand that. So maybe we need a board working session, because back in the day when you negotiate, the negotiating team from the teachers would work on it. They'd go back to their membership, they'd gather it up, they'd frame it. The negotiating team from the district, the board, would work on it, and then you'd hammer it out at the table together. We've just been discombobulated the last
I
5 years
think
with
we
it.
have to decide what we value here in the way of positions, and then we have to fund those, because we're not gonna get people to do these things for nothing. It's unrealistic.
Absolutely. I mean,
And-
there are some things on here that are
Absolutely.
great for
I
the
don't think
school.
anything's-
I know a ton of staff that put a
Arts.
lot of their personal time in. I
I
absolutely
don't,
agree.
I don't begrudge paying it. What I would like to know is there a job description for each of these? And do the people that are taking
And
these
are they being
positions,
evaluated?
do they know
Well, that's
their,
it. They have
do
to
they know the
supervise.
expectations?
Yes, they have
They
to
brought up a point
supervise.
too.
The answer is for job descriptions at this point, no. And evaluations, the athletic director and the high school principal I have talked about. I have an evaluation for them. We are evaluating all coaches this year. So that is rolling out this year. And it's a little more difficult to evaluate, I'm gonna pick student council. Student council could be as many activities and events as the students and the advisor want to do, and they could have something every week. That might be a little unrealistic, but someone may be absolutely in love with it and run with it, and that is their ball of wax and away they go. Well, then that person moves on or gives up student council. The next person coming in shouldn't be held to that same standard. There's going to be a student council activity every week. That's a little unrealistic, in my opinion, from what I've experienced in schools. But maybe once a month would be appropriate. So,
So that's where we should have an expectation.
Right.
What's our
Right. A minimum
expectation? What's our
expectation.
expectation of any of these?
So,
I think
Right.
it's as much for our protection as it is for the employee or person who is running that club. And it's fine when a student, we'll say student council person wants to do 12 things, but they signed up knowing the pay was $400. If they chose to do 12 things a month, then that was their
The
choice.
rate went down
But
to-
the rate's not gonna go up by that. But an expectation, a job expectation, and who their direct supervisor is, I think, is a good base to start with.
right, because if there's a stipend and we've been talking about student council, and you said, okay, you have to have five activities a school year. Okay, well then fine, what are they? Here we go, and you know then you're meeting your minimum requirement of your job, which is fine.
Like, it could be
Right.
some kind of a chart where, when did you meet, what activities were,
Right.
and you turn that in, just so that, I mean, you could sign up as the advisor for something in September and just, oh, we had to cancel the meeting because we had to cancel, and at the end of the school year, they didn't do anything, you know, so.
Right.
I would add too, so it's not lost, I do appreciate all this work. And that's what you've been, since Jen, you've joined us, is you've informed us in such a way that is very awesome, and I appreciate for that. But just more discussion, like, I'm looking at a 5-year plan, right, in the strategic planning, as an example. Like, Northwest Wisconsin school has done it, right? We also have to figure out after this post-union world has changed, is like incentive structure for school pay. So, the 5-year plan is, let's get an incentive, a structure, so that we can reward people, teachers for going above and beyond. And there's briefings at the school board convention, they may or may not apply to us, but some of these could fit in those categories. If you want to go above and beyond this year and increase a better pay and take your next movement into another section of performer that year, some of these would fit underneath that. We don't have to pay them more, but then you're like, hey, here's, go do more for this school and then you can get your next raise. So that's not solved in this meeting. But those are the things like maybe, I don't know where it fits in strategic planning or long-term vision as the state of Wisconsin figures out how to be more competitive, maybe like industry, because that was the theory, I guess. We haven't figured it out yet, but that's what I would say the long-term plan. So the good short-term, it is our history. think we deal with it. If we're missing some, we can probably talk about it, we probably support that. But long-term, the vision is how much money do we spend and put some bounds on it. And the evaluations is awesome, by the way. First time I actually heard you, I didn't know that. I'm glad you're evaluating our coaches, because they are.
Well, I'm not that black.
Or,
but
the school.
we're getting
the
a
school.
system.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
That's good. That's awesome. You know, some of these other people might, because feedback and mentoring is a great thing, you know, so but I am coming into this after, 100 years of education, right? So it's been working, I guess.
That's the way we've always done it, mentality that.
But I remember, we're just coming out of this too, building referendums, operational referendums. We need to be able to tell our community that we continue in every area. What we do on the playground, what we do in our parking lot, and how we pay our staff. And oh, by the way, to our staff, we do value our staff. And I hope this board has been showing that. We continue to value our staff, so we're just trying to figure out where that right value is. And you've been helping us, guide us through that.
Well,
You guys will continue to help us too, so.
And Dave, when you say like 5 years, that's great. We got school starting up next week.
Well, no, that's what I'm
Right,
saying.
yeah, So
We need
it's
to
on,
approve. No, I
we're
agree
fighting
with that.
ourselves. It'd be great if we could just sit down and go, okay, let's really
Right.
hone in on her, but.
So are you asking us to approve these tonight? Because the school is starting, so.
Well, some activities are going on as well, correct. And the other thing you should know is these dollar amounts have been stagnant for a while. So,
That's the point I wanted to make.
You're right.
Is that if this reimbursement has been stuck and we haven't had any movement, where's the incentive for anybody, whether it's a teacher or an outside community member, to be motivated to do that if they've been paid the same? So that's a concern. And then the other concern I have is, you referenced trying to find a strategy to know when you need an assistant for this program versus not. And I think that's almost policy-driven, folks. I feel like, you know, we can't just let that in limbo land too. And so I think there's some work that needs to be done when it comes to.
oh yeah, this is not done by a long shot. I mean, yeah, right, exactly, because we have
Is that
in the
an
past.
athletic director's position to monitor when a coach needs an assistant and not? And is that too much for the athletic director?
It'd be better if they had, and I think the athletic director can help administration come up with, if you have this many participants in this sport, that's where the breakdown becomes, where now we're gonna have a varsity and a JV. And if we have this many, we're gonna have varsity, JV, and freshmen. And I think that's gotta be done sport by sport, because every sport is,
I'm sure.
you know,
Well, I
volleyball,
don't
there's 6
think-
girls in the court.
And it's not even
Problem-
just by numbers, it's by how you have to work with them during practices, and, you know, each sport's different that way. You know, you go off and break off with this group, but you need a coach to break off with that group working on this specific area. You know, like you have offense and defense, and you have different coaches for that. It's not just by the number of kids on the field too. But that's,
There is an element there too, right, but if you only had 2 kids go out for track, you're not gonna say, okay, I'm gonna have a throwing coach, a
Right,
long jump coach, a
right.
long distance coach, and a sprinter, even though one girl is sprinting and
Right.
doing long jump, and the other one's doing shot put and a mile.
yeah.
You know, so you're not gonna say, well, I need a distance coach, you're getting, so numbers play into it and positions play into it, so it's complex.
Well, I think it would make sense to table this. There isn't a way to vote on this tonight, because it sounds like we all want more information.
So,
Roll?
No, I just have something to interject on this, as one thing that's not listed on here, especially for the coaches, is they do get experience pay, which is 1% of their, it increases by 1% for each year that they are in that same sport or in that same position. 1% of what they're being paid for their.
That is correct, and when he says sport, so like if you're the, I don't know, pick basketball, 7th grade coach one year, and the next year you're at the high school level, that counts as 2 years' experience within the sport of basketball. Right.
So I have two things. First of all, the one thing, because of need, and we've heard this for a while, Adam, maybe this will help you. Maybe we need to hard think about our sub pay. You want more subs? Pay them more. You got a problem in a school, pay them more. That incentive, natural incentive. You know, because Sturgeon Bay, if someone, my wife used to sub before she got a full-time teaching job, and schools pay different amounts, and it made more sense to go to the school that paid more, because as a sub, you know, and you know, they're gonna go out and work hard, whichever classroom they're in, but if you get more take-home pay, why don't we take that call instead of this call? So maybe we look at that. The other thing that might be interesting, and I didn't do it here, maybe we add all this up and see what the budgetary impact is for the year. And you know what, maybe it's such a small negligible amount that it's in the management flexibility, and maybe these aren't a big deal. I just never added them all up.
Well, compared to what a teacher's salary is, this is not much, I don't think.
No, well, a different scenario, what is our operating budget? What is our, right here?
$10 million.
$10 million bucks,
Which
right?
you're talking, I think
Maybe.
Jay, you and Dave are talking to the things. Jay, you're talking about each individual spot, right?
Right, but in the
that
grand
much.
scheme of things, if you added up all these amounts, which you've taken some of these off, I mean, this is, I don't think it's good. What does it add up to?
It's about $85,000. Right. But that's a lot of clubs and sports
there's a
and
lot
a
of
lot of
events.
contact with students.
Yeah.
So I value it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Part
about
of your school, it's
$85,000.
part of your,
Yeah,
Right.
it's not a
fabric.
huge amount of money.
No, but it's getting it framed and organized.
Right,
That's where we're
right.
loose. Yeah.
But what do you need for this year?
It's like not even 1% of our budget is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But Jay, what I was saying, a different side, don't get me wrong, if someone gives me $200, it matters to me.
Well, no, I mean, I
So
don't want.
what I was saying is we're less than 1% of our operating budget. And maybe I'm making too much of a big deal about 1% and let Kyle and his admin team set this up and we'll approve it. And for the year, honestly, I think we need to approve this. Because,
Yeah, I
right,
do
people are
too.
gonna be doing stuff right now.
And I don't think
I think
people-
there's work to be done,
I
and
don't
we all
think people do
agree.
these positions
but-
to get the $200. I mean, I can honestly say, I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably good to have a stipend, but I can tell you as a, I don't know a coach that does it for the $2,500. I mean, they do it because they have a passion. Music people do it because
The evaluation aspect that I like is, generally I would agree with you, but there are gonna be a small maybe not at Sevastopol, but someday in life, there might be a small number of teachers that are doing it for the money.
There might
Or the individual, not a teacher, the individual who's doing it for the money, and that's gonna reflect in how they do it. And that's
it's
why the
the-
evaluation is a nice
And
add
it
so
goes
far.
back to what, is the student having the best experience? Are we giving them the best
Right,
experience?
and the
they
evaluation
can
is some feedback that will help with
in
that.
whatever, whether it's in AODA or on the football field, are they getting the best experience?
Well, I think if they aren't having a
So-
good experience, they aren't gonna
Well, no, I mean,
participate.
I don't.
Oh, I don't know.
I do agree with that.
That's a discussion for another time.
Well,
So,
and I like
does
that.
someone-
Yeah, well, I like how you said a good experience because it's not always winning and losing
It's
either,
not
but that's
winning
a
and
part of
losing.
it.
Right, no, certainly.
Right,
It's
right.
not winning and losing.
Right.
You
It's,
can't
um,
evaluate on its, improvement maybe.
And if you have kids dropping out of an activity, then you have to look at it and say,
Wait, I saw that
where's
too.
the experience,
Right.
what's
Is that what we're
happening
doing
with the
for
experience?
maybe I am.
So did I hear that we want to make a motion to approve this?
I'll move to approve the recommended stipends for 2018-19.
I'll second that.
Any other questions or discussion?
I
Is
just
this
don't
something
feel
No,
that's-
that's okay, keep talking.
I just don't feel that we've gone, we need to spend a little more conversation on something. I mean, one of the things that I note here, and I sent Kyle some detailed emails, but IMC supervisor, we're paying somebody $20 an hour to supervise the IMC when we pay a substitute teacher less. And just
We
things
pay
like that.
substitute teacher $96 for a full day, correct?
Right, but per hour, and I'm just saying
Right,
by per hour and things like that. You know, it's not that it's just, I think we're just kind of, now, we're just gonna push it ahead in one other year, rather than.
Well, no, I
working
think
on it.
this can be looked at.
Right.
Well, that was gonna be my
Right.
follow-up.
Yeah, I don't mean
then
to
don't
just
approve
cut
it.
this off. I think we need to have
Kyle?
something in place for this year.
What happens if we don't have something in place for this year?
Well, how are you gonna pay your coaches? Why would you go out and coach, or why would you do an activity if there's nothing for you to do that,
Well,
right?
so-
They're gonna do it,
Right.
but there has to be a stipend for their time they're putting in.
Oh, yeah, I don't
Okay,
think
well,
we cannot pay
Here's,
more.
let me rephrase my question. What happens if it's not approved August 16th but we have that follow-up meeting you and Karen have both alluded to at some point that this group thinks is reasonable by end of September or something, and then we get it laid in. I'm kind of asking.
What would happen at that point would be Carl would be paying them at last year's rate, and we just kind of keep going as we've been doing until an adjustment's been made. That's what would happen.
But they get back pay, that would have to be part of the approval.
Well, if they got approved and it was in more, of course, then there's back pay and such, and that's,
'Cause we could
was
al-
often done
So
in
could
the
we also
past.
approve it now, but since, maybe with a caveat that there's a good chance that we'll revisit it within this year? Then you can notify everyone on this thing that, hey, we're gonna relook at this and there might be an adjustment mid-year.
Well, I have no problem with that. I think it'd be very difficult, though, to say to somebody, well, we're gonna cut your pay by $500.
Yeah.
yeah, you
in the middle of the
can't, yeah,
year.
if you approve something
Middle of the year.
tonight, and then in the future you say, we're eliminating that spot or cutting it in half or whatever, it's hard to go back on that, because they're already committed in last year's dollars at that point.
It would have to be for the next year.
Right, so in
So to
that,
Karen's point, it's irrelevant what we do. And no disrespect meant to the comment, right? But what we're saying is either, if we do nothing, they get last year's payment, and then once they get last year's payment, they're gonna be grandfathered in, so whatever we do is irrelevant until next year. So, I'm just, that's okay.
Right, right.
I'm just trying to, I'm trying to help the decision process. Do we have to do something or not? And I'm not sure,
Well,
I don't
unless
know what
we,
the answer is.
I
We've
mean,
gotta
you've
get
worked,
this-
you've worked on this for a year. This was one of the first things we discussed at a July or August meeting last year, and here we are a year later.
well, the first thing we discussed was the salary schedule. That was different than this. This is a
That was
whole
worse
different
than
animal.
this.
Sure,
That
sure.
was, right.
Well, then, so that we can move forward with our staff, we can approve this as it sits, but we need to then make a point that we are going to look at this with hard data to work on improvement of it for next year, so that we can make the corrections as needed, whether it's up or down, eliminate, and get some numbers, because we can get these job descriptions and we can get these number of coaches figured out with guidelines, would be my thought then. Because I mean, I understand the bookkeeping aspect of it. I mean, we're not gonna have somebody not getting paid for the time that they're putting in. And I don't think anybody's questioning that, but I think it's just that we wanna have data supporting the dollars. Because that's our job for the taxpayers to know that we are looking at things in detail, as well as for our staff.
Well, we approve it, it sounds like we're leaning towards approving it, but would it be worthwhile caveating, but, you know, we want job descriptions on everything by some point this school year, Christmas, after?
No, I think we need a work session for the board on this then. Because back in the day, like, I'll go back to the negotiations where the negotiating team for the board would have sat down and said, we value this spot at that amount and that's what we're gonna offer. And they would have had their list and they would gone back and forth.
I think we would endure that process.
Do we invite the AD and the admin team for that, so that
Sure.
way, I think that would be appropriate.
Right.
So,
One thing that might help that process is many of our great staff members and volunteers or people that do this might find some time in the next few months to write their job description. Write it however they want, how they save the world or not.
Well, Kyle has a form.
Then would be, so my point is tell them to fill out the form.
Yeah, here it is.
Everyone on here,
Job description.
well, that's what I'm saying, they all fill it out. And then when the school board sits down, we will have a bunch of drafted job descriptions to help us understand what set design means. You know, is that a PhD in engineering doing stuff, or is it the guy who moves things on in between acts? I don't know, I don't know. So is that doable? I don't want to overburden our great staff, but, and I think, so the school board would probably tolerate that process, but we would probably get there faster if we understand what all these people think they do in their head. So however you want to get the job description, but I tell you, if we sit down as a school board, because you know I love to BS with this group, we'll get through it. It'll be painful, but we're going to be making stuff up, some of it. So how do we get a draft job description?
We can use the form I have here, and rather than say propose, it could be, what you do is your stipend,
Yes, sir.
and we know who is AODA, athletic curriculum
right.
chair, hand it to each one, say,
Yes,
here you
sir.
go, get this in by whatever date.
Some
and then we
reasonable
meet.
time.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then we do our homework and do our job and sit down with whoever we need to sit down
Right.
with.
Yeah, that's doable. It's the fact we haven't had job descriptions around here. I mean, that's one step, and then the other step is these have stayed stagnant for a long time, and that's a problem. I mean, yeah, we love what we're doing. One year I figured out what I got for coaching by high school basketball, and it was awful because I liked Saturday practices, and that's what I did. And yeah, and my father said, "Why do you have Saturday practices? You're costing yourself your per hour rate." Because basketball
Well,
coach, that's
so-
what we do, So yeah, it's interesting.
To force our hand, we could make, we could approve these as is with the note that we're gonna review these throughout the year. If we eliminate any of these positions, they continue to get paid throughout the year, so they're grandfathered in.
There'd be no elimination until 1920.
Right.
Yeah, that's
We're in
my,
motion.
I'm with you, that's my.
Okay, let's call the first question. Jay made a motion, somebody seconded that we approve the stipends as presented for 2018-19. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, if we feel that we need another motion to put that in, do we need a motion, or is it just an understanding that we'll be having, the administrative team will be working on this, and we'll have a working session sometime in the future to work on 1920?
Do we need a motion for that?
I think there should be a motion. Yeah, that's what you
Yeah,
guys are
otherwise
recommending, right?
It'll be another
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, I think you
So
gotta,
I,
Make a motion. What you want to do. Carl will take it down.
I move we ask the superintendent to produce job descriptions for all the stipends. And when that's complete, the school board will review all the job descriptions against the stipends.
I'll
Is
second.
there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, any other additions, questions, discussion on that motion?
I didn't put timelines on it, and how you task that out is up to you.
Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And that concludes our regular business for tonight. Thank you, everyone. I'll take a motion to convene to executive session.
I'll move to convene into executive session.
Second.
All in favor, say, Cindy?
Aye.
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 Roll call vote passed at 9:12 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
$15 an hour.
Now we have to pay.
We are on.
Okay, so we are back in open session, and I'll look for a motion to approve the Destination Imagination Coordinator position.
I move to approve Kathy Marshall as the Destination Imagination Coordinator position for the
Second.
Questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. A motion to approve Tiffany Kelsey as the middle school special education aide.
I make a motion to approve Tiffany Kelsey as a special education.
Second?
Questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion on Laura Lemke as the Title I associate.
I'll make a motion to approve Laura Lemke as the Title I associate.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. To approve the FMLA request of Liz Colburn.
I move to approve the FMLA request of Liz Colburn.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to approve the middle school football coach position, Nick DeYoung.
I move we approve Nick DeYoung as the middle school football coach.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And Dennis Fleur is the head high school track coach with Chris Horvat as the assistant coach.
I make a motion to approve Dennis Porter as the high school head track coach and Chris Horvath as the assistant track coach.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The executive minutes from June 11th were a closed session item, so there is no action to take here. We have a special school board meeting on August 21st, the annual meeting on August 28th, and then our regular school board meeting on September 20th. And then there are there's a couple dates that Mr. Lupke gave us. The all-staff breakfast on August 27th, the picnic is on August 27th. And I guess that's it.
Is that meeting, the special meeting, is that like at 6:30? or-
What time, I don't have a time, what
Earlier.
time do you want? I was thinking it's kind of odd, we have two different times for special and regular, I don't know why that is, but that's how it
They
is.
figured you'd meet it earlier, I guess, right? Isn't that what
Well,
the
our
reason was?
normal board meetings used to start at 6:30 for a list. Were we supposed to be a half hour ahead for the list?
We don't do
We
the
don't do
listening
that
sessions
But I mean,
anymore.
is that why we did, I mean, is that why my?
No,
No,
special
I
meetings
don't
were
know.
always earlier for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know
Six.
either.
Okay, you guys tell me what time you want.
Well, how does it work into those of you that have a work schedule? How does set 6 work?
If you start a half
versus
hour
7?
earlier, hopefully we can get home a half hour earlier.
Yeah, it doesn't
I
really,
like that.
So special meeting at 6:30?
yeah.
But her question was about what
21st at
time
6:30.
you can get there from work.
Hey, years ago, they used to have meetings at 8 so they could milk the cows.
Yeah.
They did it till 1:30 in the morning.
6:30.
Can we go 6:30?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.